Hello and welcome to another edition of The Big Question in conjunction with positivebritain.co.uk. Today I'm with Buky Olufemi and Michael Spooner, and we're going to talk about how to create a more positive Britain next year, aren't we, guys?
Yes, we are.
And we're going to be happy because it's Christmas, and none of us are wearing red. Look at this. I think at least Buky has made an effort.
Yes, exactly.
Buky has made an effort to look
I did
Christmassy. So bless your heart.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. And Michael, you look fabulous as always.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the first question really is, obviously we've come through an election time now. Do you both feel that the country has healed? And if not, how would you do it? So we'll start off with Buky. How would you start off?
Sure. So, we found out, on the 12th, on the 13th actually, that...
Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Don't we remember it?
Don't we remember it as well? Oh gosh, right. So, Friday the 13th, early hours, we did find out that, Conservatives won. And that means we also found out that actually it was a vote for it was a Brexit vote. It was a vote to get the job done, really. I think the consensus from that was that people are tired of being in limbo and they just want Boris to deliver. So we found that people that would normally vote Labour, they lent the Conservatives their vote so we can just get out, get the job done. And with that, I think I think we just need to let the dust settle. And I think there's those that are unhappy with the results. They've still got issues with it. But ultimately, I think it's time now to sit back and hope that Boris delivers on all the promises that he made.
Yeah. Michael,
Yes.
From a business point of view, we're seeing the pound going up, we're seeing the pound going down.
That's
it's
right.
all over the place again.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think that it will settle because there's always the markets that always trying to predict the economic effect of a 80-seat majority or 76-seat majority for the Conservatives. Unfortunately he's going to tie his own hands in the trade deal with putting in the 31st of December target, so he's not going to allow any extension, which is obviously designed to force the hand of the Europeans in terms of negotiations. And of course the markets won't like that because that puts no deal potentially if things don't go our way back on the table, and that's why the pound will go up and down. It will build volatility in the marketplace as well. So I think, but yeah, the good thing about the decision, it wasn't my decision. I'm not. People know me; they know I'm not conservative. But the good thing about the decision is we have a clear way forward for business. So businesses need certainty and clarity. We now know we are going to leave. We know we're going to have some kind of trade deal at some point. And many businesses, small businesses, the majority of businesses are small, will now be able to start planning and settling down. But I think people are still in a bit of shock and in denial, and there's a lot of anger and frustration. There will be, and particularly in the Labour Party side, and they need to come together because the country needs an opposition. We need, Mr. Johnson does need an official opposition for Parliament to function, for democracy to work. So bringing us back together means both parties working in the way in which the system is designed for them to work and help.
I think, obviously, probably one of the first indicators of whether people trust the government, obviously we're coming up to Christmas, retail sales, I think will be one of the first indicators of whether people feel that they can go out and spend again. What do you think about that, Buky?
I think with, especially with retail, there's this big sort of anticipation if people are going to spend on that front. Obviously, over the years that we've seen that there's been a, just a downturn in people spending on the high street, and that's made up particularly with online shopping. So I think we would have to see how it goes and then review the stats on that. Yeah.
Yes.
But obviously, as you know, Michael, Christmas is a very important time for retailers more than anything. So what do you think they will be doing right now? Because they've already started cutting costs before prices before even Christmas happens.
Yeah, well, retailers make 80%, believe it or not, Ian, 80% of their money is made in the months of November and December. Most retailers are running a loss all through the year, and then when it gets to November, December, that's when they expect to make their money. So we will know if there's a positive news with the retail sales figures, then we know that the country's more or less happy, more or less going in the right direction. I suspect that people are so glad that the election's over. People will probably spend money. They're discounting, of course, because they've stocked up, ready. They were anticipating the worst, weren't they? And so I suspect the retailers should come through more or less balanced, I suspect. I think that's what the figures are going to tell us. So I'm relatively optimistic in terms of retail sales.
2020, what are the things that, because with Positive Britain, as you know, we're looking on three fronts. We're looking on supporting SMEs, we're looking at supporting communities, and we're looking at, with other charities as well, working with disconnected teenagers and trying to stop things like knife crime happening. So what are the positive things that we can do, British business can do, to actually unite Britain again? Buky.
Right, so I guess, we just talked about there's people that are still grieving, there's people that are still angry about the election vote and maybe what they feel is needed and crucial. The differences they are hoping for in our community, they're still sore about that, and they're still angry that maybe their needs and their voices not being met. So maybe it's now time to turn our focus and attention on that and not letting majority of people that feel that way going unheard. So that would be in terms of, because for most people, when we talk about, disconnected youth and all, knife crime and all the rest of it, I think then now the focus is standing the spotlight on, again, on charities that are, they've got their neck out, they're sticking their neck out, and they are at the front line and ensuring that the bridge is met. And so maybe it's the case of just working, liaising with charities like that, and to make sure there is a clear plan of how we tend to go forward in 2020. So whether, there's all different sorts of initiatives going on. So maybe if it is for after school clubs or things for youth to do, so they're not idle and getting up to mischief. So really shining a light on that and liaising and with charities in order to help them do that. Yeah.
And Michael, there's a lot of emphasis now about the Northern Powerhouse, putting money into northern businesses. What type of things do northern businesses, do you think, really want?
Well, the Northern Powerhouse, that big concentration, Manchester, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, that whole area down, all the way down to the Midlands, really. It's that big space, top half of London, top half of United Kingdom, really. The manufacturing is going to be a big area of investment. There's much more concentration of manufacturing businesses in that area. Clearly there's a big emphasis on transport links. That's what the Northern Powerhouse project is all about. Connecting their communities. They've got lots of deprived towns, not the big cities, the big conurbations like Manchester, but the towns in between the big conurbations are really suffering, and they're the ones that voted Brexit, and they're the ones that voted for the Conservatives this time round. So I think in terms of being positive, the types of projects that we want to, is really how do you help those very old industrial, traditional working class communities where people are economically suffering? How does the government, with its welfare, health, education, universal credit, all those initiatives, how can they make them work better? Because now apparently austerity is being lifted, then we should see more investment in those kinds of schemes. Big need for housing, of course, in the north as well, in terms of better quality housing. And of course, we've got the environmental green agenda. Next year in Glasgow, we're going to be hosting the everybody from around the world around our environmental, the climate change conferences, and clearly this year is 2020 is quite an important year for the government to lead on initiatives that can, really boost those small towns within, or town centres and towns within the north, and there's lots of them. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of towns that are deprived.
And maybe actually to add on to that is that I think right now, if we want a united Britain, it's focusing on maybe the working class as well and what they're crying out for. So it's not just along with that, it's also things like making sure that majority of a population is not dependent on food banks because of universal credit, making sure that they do have access to housing, so you don't have families that find themselves on now with a housing crisis, and they find themselves in shelters with young ones, and making sure that there's school meals for kids, they're not malnutritioned, and they're just making sure that majority of the population that affected that by this are not living under the poverty line.
No, I get. So, Michael, and in fact, Buky, first of all, again, you were just talking about revitalising areas. So obviously, one of the biggest problems is revitalising high streets as well, and how to actually. We've become very much an online economy now. Yeah. But how do you revitalise that? How do you bring sort of centres, town centres back into life again? And there's different opportunities of actually perhaps returning some of the shops to living accommodation and so forth. What type of things, if you visit a high street now, Buky, what do you look for your age group? What are you seeking?
Unfortunately, I think the high street need to take a minute to look at how to sustain our attention again, because I've made that change right onto online as well. So I'm probably part of the majority and ultimately part of the problem. It's a matter of convenience, and for me, I do shop online, and the time I do have to go to the high street, which isn't, it's rare because obviously you've got the crowding and it's just easier online. But if I am at the shop, I look for just to be able to get what I need, to nip in, to nip out, so things are organised right. I think that they would then need to look at ways to get the crowds back in. So for me, it's just, when I do go somewhere, just making sure what I came for, I'm able to access, that there is the help there if I need, that I'm able to get in and out and find what I need with the help of the retailers.
So would you say it has to be a much more positive experience now?
Yeah.
And we need to get back to experiences as well. People, they're saying like they're going to be creating all sorts of entertainments. I know in London, for example, Brent Cross, one of our big shopping centres, they're going to double in size, but they're going to put 50 new restaurants in. So, Michael, what do you think about that, to revitalise the high streets?
I just done a project in Pelham and Nunhead on High Street last year. It was, now I've submitted it to the council. But the high streets are going to be different places because of the impact of the internet. So we don't need so much retail. We need retail, housing, entertainment. The whole town centre regeneration project needs to, right across the country, actually, all parts of the country, high streets will change. So we don't need so many physical shops. We just need them to be very, very good at attracting footfall, bringing people in. I think councils need to have a plan for each town centre, and what at the moment happens is people can come along, Buky could come along and say, she could get that shop, and then she can open, and you end up with lots of shops of the same type, over capacity, and then nobody can make any money. So I think the high street needs to be a planned space. It needs to be planned by the council using its planning powers, not just allowing for instance, if you get too many restaurants, then you get overcapacity as well.
I think
we do need the council to plan it rather than allow it to grow.
And I wonder
organically.
whether we're feeding an obesity as well.
Yes.
Yeah, well, this is it.
Yes.
You can only.
I mean, I
How
don't
much
know.
how much eating and drinking can you do?
Yeah, how
well,
much?
Michael.
How much
I
indeed?
ask you, no, I don't ask you that question. But I think, you know, the reality at the moment is it is a changing economy.
Yeah.
I think the issues that we're facing, things like artificial intelligence, so we're not really becoming a country of production anymore.
No.
We're becoming a country of service.
That's right.
But that ultimately means a lot less jobs in that sector. So how do we overcome that type of situation? Is it really starting up more businesses of your own? And what type of businesses do you think, the two of you starting with Buky, what type of businesses would be successful in the 2020s?
Right, okay, well, I'm going to start with your first question, which is, you know, with how can they improve it within this festive season. So then I'm thinking that, you know, for anyone that does bother to go to the high street, it's got to be an experience. So it's got to be delivering the whole package. I mean, people still come out for a family time. So you've got to think about Christmas, what a family's doing. You know, they probably ended up in Winter Wonderland. And the reason they're doing that is because they want that experience. So maybe it's thinking about incorporating, creating a customer experience, and just if you go into the shop, like have mince pies at the ready, have a live performance while you're shopping, and you know places like Primark, they've got with it. They know what the customer wants. So you can, while the wife or the missus or the husband is shopping, if you're tired, there's a little seating area. You can grab a coffee. You know, you can go get your nails done. You can go get your hair done. There's so many things that you can do. So, and it's all incorporated under one roof. So now maybe it's about creating that experience to get them in. And in terms of 2020 and businesses, we are moving towards a digital front. Things, you know, what we want and how it's delivered, we want it a specific way. So maybe it is incorporating, maybe it's you know, digital. Clearly, it's usually evolved about digital companies. What we exactly need for 220, I think you will have to let me know, Michael.
What do you think, Michael? Because I mean, for obviously you're involved with a lot of SMEs. So what type of things are you seeing coming through? What type of trends? What type of styles of business?
Yeah, well, certainly all businesses now need to have a proper digital footprint, proper website, all of it, regardless of what types, but we are getting more things like the circular economy, more the sharing economy, businesses that are kind of environmentally friendly, that are making money, recycling vintage clothes. You're getting a lot of those types of businesses coming through, but they all need a big online communication footprint. They need to be media savvy. They're usually people in their 30s or 20s and 30s, quite young people from all walks of life, all backgrounds. So we're getting, there is, I mean, being an entrepreneur is something that I think in the 2020s we're gonna, it's gonna be, there's certainly opportunity in the turbulence of Brexit and the post-Brexit place now, where we are now moving into this trade deal. Being your own boss is a good thing. There's certainly opportunities out there because the big companies will not be, they're going to be consolidating and shedding staff. We saw 50 businesses, large businesses go into administration last year. So we know large employment is not going to be sustained. The public sector isn't employing necessarily people. And so you're going to need much more smaller businesses to, people to start their businesses. And I would encourage people at Positive Britain, we would encourage people to get advice, put a decent business plan in place, do your research, of course, and start a business in things that you know about. You need to be a professional and an expert in whatever you're trying to do. If you're going to start a restaurant, you have to love the fundamentals of preparing food and serving people. And we are still a service economy. 80% of our businesses are service businesses. 10% are manufacturing businesses, and the other 10% is something in between, a combination of both. Product businesses are easy to start, so if you've got a product, they're much more easier to start and fund than service business. Service businesses are quite complex, and so, but you know, this enterprising country of ours, Ian, people can, if you're going to make it rich and make it well, you can do it in the United Kingdom. It's small enough, it's modern enough, it's got a social welfare support system. There is a even in London, Ian, the Mayor of London's got a very good business support. It's called the London Growth Hub, londongrowthhub.co.uk, of course, and that's a really good. You can get free business support there. So starting up has never been easier in London. Now the question is, for the United Kingdom, can they replicate that all the way across the country? Because you know, Birmingham needs it. Manchester needs it, Leeds needs it, Sheffield needs it. You know, all those big conurbations need a kind of business support mechanism, and the government needs to support that and fund it.
So finally, because we're out of time again, as always, we're always fighting time on this show, unfortunately. I'd like to just ask each of you to give a happy message, just something very simple. So for me, next year, I hope that more kindness comes to communities more than anything, more fairness comes to communities, and that perhaps some of the more dramatic situations and proposals that were put out during the election, you know, are probably sort of softened a lot. I want to see communities. My personal hope is in 2020, everybody in Britain feels like a first-class citizen. That's my hope. Buky, what would be your positive message for?
Sure. Leading on that, I think, I think for us to come together, we do have to be more tolerant, more kind, and understand that we are ultimately all one. So, that will take a softened approach and laws, and just getting back to the people and how we can help each other, how we can come together and ultimately move forward. A bit of kindness goes a long way.
And what would be your short message as well?
Well, I want to say my message to leaders, people in leadership positions, whether it's political leaders or business leaders, that integrity matters. You know, speaking the truth, being honest, communicating clearly, not necessarily playing the tricks of the trade just to win for winning's sake. But there's a bigger message here. There's a bigger impact, because that you either got to govern for the whole country or govern for the whole organisation, and so my message is integrity matters, honesty and truth. And we've seen in election lots of fake news and false statements. We need to stop this false statements and actually get back to boring, speaking the truth. And putting a price on integrity.
Excellent. Michael, that's a great thing to finish on. So Buky and Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, what can I say? You know, the reality is positivebritain.co.uk, along with ALB UK Television, want to see a positive future in Britain. In London, we're going to try and specialise in working with SME businesses, to work with communities to highlight all the good things that are happening, and also try and work with the youth, creating enterprise zones and opportunities for young people to turn away from things like knife crime and gangs and into something more positive like media. So from the three of us, I hope you've enjoyed listening to us once more. And again, thank you for your time. And we will both see you again soon. And if we don't see you before Christmas, have a great Christmas.
Have a good Christmas.
Indeed.
Bye for now.